President Donald J. Trump is a very courageous man. He has been advised not to commute Roger Stone's sentence. There's nothing in it for him politically whatsoever. He will come under attack. I spent a good chunk of the earlier part of the program explaining why Roger Stone is nothing like the terrorists, the domestic terrorists that two Democrat presidents pardoned and for which they took almost no heat. But let me read to you now the statement from the press secretary to the president regarding the commutation of Roger Stone's sentence. And by the way, that judge that he was in front of was a disgrace and still is. Today, President Donald J. Trump signed an executive grant of clemency, commuting the unjust sentence of Roger Stone Jr. Roger Stone is a victim of the Russia hoax that the left and its allies in the media perpetrated for years in an attempt to undermine the Trump presidency. There was never any collusion between the Trump campaign or the Trump administration with Russia. Such collusion was never, was never anything other than a fantasy of partisans unable to accept the result of the 2016 election. The collusion delusion spawned endless and farcical investigations, conducted at great taxpayer expense, looking for evidence that never existed. As it became clear that these witch hunts would never bear fruit, the special counsel's office resorted to process-based charges leveled at high-profile people in an attempt to manufacture the false impression of criminality lurking below the surface. This is brilliantly written, by the way. These charges were the product of recklessness born of frustration and malice. This is why the out-of-control Mueller prosecutors, desperate for splashy headlines to compensate for a failed investigation, set their sights on Mr. Stone. Roger Stone is well known for his nearly 50 years of work as a consultant for high-profile Republican politicians, including President Ronald Reagan, Senator Bob Dole, and many others. He's also well known for his outspoken support for President Donald J. Trump and opposition to Hillary Clinton. Mr. Stone was charged by the same prosecutors from the Mueller investigation, tasked with finding evidence of collusion with Russia. And because no such evidence exists, they could not charge him for any collusion-related crime. Instead, they charged him for his conduct during their investigation. The simple fact is that if the special counsel had not been pursuing an absolutely baseless investigation, Mr. Stone would not be facing time in prison. In addition to charging Mr. Stone with alleged crimes arising solely from their own improper investigation, the Mueller prosecutors also took pains to make a public and shameful spectacle of his arrest. Mr. Stone is a 67-year-old man with numerous medical conditions who had never been convicted of another crime. But rather than allow him to surrender himself, they used dozens of FBI agents with automatic weapons and tactical equipment, armored vehicles, right, Joe Biden, and an amphibious unit to execute a pre-dawn raid of his home, where he was with his wife of many years. Notably, CNN cameras were present to broadcast these events live to the world, even though they swore they were not notified. It was just a coincidence that they were there together with the FBI early in the morning. Not only was Mr. Stone charged by overzealous prosecutors pursuing a case that never should have existed and arrested in an operation that never should have been approved, but there were also serious questions about the jury in the case. The forewoman of this jury, for example, concealed the fact that she's a member of the so-called liberal resistance to the Trump presidency. In now deleted tweets, this activist juror vividly and openly attacked President Trump and his supporters. And the fact that this judge allowed this to take place, there has to be an easy way to remove these judges now. This is just appalling. This one and Sullivan, these rogue federal judges. Finally, it continues, Mr. Stone would be put at serious medical risk in prison. He has appealed his conviction and is seeking a new trial. He maintains his innocence and has stated that he expects to be fully exonerated by the justice system. Mr. Stone, like every American, deserves a fair trial and every opportunity to vindicate himself before the courts. The president does not wish to interfere with his efforts to do so. At this time, however, and particularly in light of the egregious facts and circumstances surrounding his unfair prosecution, arrest, and trial, the president has determined to commute his sentence. Roger Stone has already suffered greatly. He was treated very unfairly, as were many others in this case. Roger Stone is now a free man. And I agree 100% with this decision. 100%. We cannot allow these Soviet-style judges to get away with what they're doing, these Soviet-style prosecutors to get away with what they're doing, and the Constitution gives the president this power to act, and he alone, in circumstances like this, where the system breaks down, where the system is used against the Constitution and against an individual citizen. The president gains nothing politically from this. If you heard earlier in the show, the entire reason that Bill Clinton gave clemency to FALN domestic terrorists who were involved directly or indirectly in the murder of fellow Americans was because of its political impact they felt with the Hispanic community. Barack Obama is such a coward that he waited till the day before his full last day in office to issue his pardon to the man who headed the FALN and was not remorseful about the violence that he unleashed. No. This president stands up. And this case was an abomination. I had Roger Stone on this program. I have never met Roger Stone. I have never socialized with Roger Stone. Roger Stone and I have been at odds. Very, very, what should I say, Mr. Producer? Very strong odds. And he has said some very nasty things about this host. But facts are facts and justice is justice. And nothing justifies what happened to him. And so you've got to put aside all that sort of stuff and look at the justice system and put yourself in his shoes. Put yourself in his shoes. When you look at the people terrorizing our communities, people who say that they are avowed Marxists, people who get so-called bail reform in the front door, out the back door, people who are brutalizing and abusing our police officers, people who are brutalizing and abusing our fellow citizens, held up as examples of revolutionaries, of the resistance, where their organization's name is now painted on famous roads and streets in our major cities. And then you look at Roger Stone, where they throw the book at him. This was a huge, huge injustice. The same applies to Papadopoulos. The same, quite frankly, applies to Manafort. Well, Mark, did he commit those crimes? Did he fail to pay his taxes? He may well have. But solitary confinement, the treatment that he received upon his arrest, this man never would have been investigated but for the fact that he was a short-time campaign manager for the President of the United States. The President sees this. And if anything, reject the media, reject the Democrats, reject the operatives who go on cable and all, and just listen to me. This demonstrates Donald Trump's compassion and, yes, his intolerance for the abuses of power that he sees that have been launched against not just him and his family, but the people around him. And he has the guts and the principle to stand up to it. Now, anybody who says that will be attacked along with the President of the United States. I don't give a damn. I could care less. You can't be sending people to prison like this, when the President of the United States was subjected to a coup effort? Now let's see how aggressive these prosecutors get when it comes to the Obama officials, when it comes to the Hillary Clinton campaign, when it comes to the reporters who conspired with the Obama officials. Let's see how aggressive they become in dealing with individuals who truly sought to undermine our republic, who truly violated our Constitution, who truly used the tools and instrumentalities of law enforcement, national security, and our intelligence services to interfere with our election in ways that only Vladimir Putin could wish he could do. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.